Carol, thank you. Coming up, new details on what a worst-case scenario could look like in Alberta's hospitals. Saskatchewan's premier promising that similar modeling information will be made public early next week, citing today's commitment by Doug Ford to do the same.
He said that the people of his province, well, they deserve the same information that he has. And I agree. The more information that we are able to provide to the people of Saskatchewan, the better informed that we will all be as our province works to reduce the spread of COVID-19.
There are now 206 COVID cases in Saskatchewan. 13 of them are new, 44 cases the result of community spread. Scott Moe saying his province is doing more testing per capita than all provinces except Alberta. As for Alberta, it has a total of 968 cases now. 97 are new, 108 suspected community spread, and 2 more people have died, both elderly men. One of them, a resident of the Mackenzie Town Continuing Care Centre in Calgary. Those types of facilities are a growing concern, especially when you consider that staff often work at more than one location. So once again, health officials in Alberta are beefing up reporting standards, but they aren't going as far as BC.
British Columbia, they have taken steps to make sure that across the province, workers are required to work in only one long-term care facility. And so that's something that we are looking at and assessing the feasibility. We understand that there could be significant workforce shortages if we were to go down that road.
Okay, so there's the breakdown of today's numbers. And now, for the first time, we're able to give you a sense of what may be coming in the weeks ahead. Premier Jason Kenney revealing predictions based on calculations by Alberta Health Services. Its modeling predicts COVID cases could peak in this province in May, and that at that peak, as you can see, about 250 people will be in intensive care beds. But the province is preparing for a worst-case scenario, which would require 1,200 ICU beds and 925 ventilators. Right now, Alberta has 509 ventilators. Kenney says the lack of bed capacity and ventilators should be addressed by the end of April. And if you have to visit a loved one in hospital during the pandemic, all patients, employees, and physicians in Saskatchewan will be able to park for free starting today. In Alberta, parking at all health facilities will be free for everyone beginning tomorrow. The province says the change will reduce the risk of spread from touchscreens and buttons at payment sites. An estimated $7 million in monthly revenue for the Alberta government now lost. Police in Alberta have been charged with enforcing the province's public health order, and the Edmonton Police Service spoke about that via Facebook today. EPS has a backlog of complaints right now, and it's urging Edmontonians to use their best judgment before they report people.
We want to emphasize to the public to use common sense in assessing and reporting incidents to the police. Certainly not everything appears what it may be in these challenging times.
Edmonton police say how to deal with issues such as too many car passengers is going to be left up to the individual officer's discretion. Alberta Health Services will be the authority investigating businesses and institutions that don't comply, as well as concerns around large gatherings. Police in Saskatchewan also talking about enforcement today. Christy Kleimenhage is filling in for Sam McKeag tonight. And Christy, I hear there's a new COVID-related hotline in your province.
Yeah, so Regina Police Chief Evan Bray posted a video message on social media reminding residents that the situation is real and we all need to do our part to keep the virus from spreading. Now, Bray says if you break the rules, be ready to face the consequences. To help with enforcement, a special toll-free phone line has been set up to allow people to report anyone who's ignoring the public health compliance order. Here in Saskatchewan, the government's state of emergency includes orders to stay home for 14 days after international travel and not to congregate in groups of 10 or more, but that's not always happening. People are now being encouraged to report alleged violations on this new phone line set up by the province's public safety agency.
Mandatory self-isolation for 14 days after international travel. That's a big one. And of course, limiting indoor and outdoor gatherings of people to no more than 10. That's a tough one when the weather is good and the kids want to be outside. But again, as parents and as good community partners, let's work together to try and limit those gatherings. That, of course, will help us flatten the curve as we go forward. Thank you to Public Health for taking the lead on these investigations. Again, the number is on the screen.
Now, Bray says the phone line will be staffed 24/7. Violations can be reported online as well on the province's website. So far, 11 people have been charged by the RCMP for violating this public health order.
And there's also some concern about liquor stores staying open.
Yeah, so the province says it did not demand that liquor stores be closed during this pandemic because basically that could cause more pressure on the healthcare system. Premier Scott Moe says there would not be enough detox or addiction supports if people are suddenly unable to get alcohol. But in some northern communities, leaders are asking for a ban on liquor sales regardless. Now, the chief of the Montreal Lake Cree Nation says he's urging the government to consider closing off sales and liquor stores because he's seeing a large increase in house parties on reserve. He says that alcohol is making the tough job of stopping these large gatherings even worse. He says there's also been an increase in bootlegging, and that's a big problem because the reserve already has an alcohol ban. Now, he's getting support from the Federation of Sovereign Indigenous Nations, and other reserves say it's time for the government to reconsider given the situation.
Christy Kleiman-Hega in Regina. Thanks, Christy.
You're welcome.
The pandemic leading to a rare move in Alberta's Court of Queen's Bench today. The sentencing in a high-profile child abuse case was made available online. Nancy Carlson is the host of CBC Edmonton News at 6. And Nancy, even the courts have had to make changes to how they operate.
Yeah, Rob, this could be a first for Alberta to have a judge read a sentence online in order for us to be able to cover the story. Now, we can't broadcast that video, but we can share the outcome with our viewers. I do want to warn you that the details in this case are disturbing. The two mothers accused in this case were each sentenced to 8 years in prison. We are not naming the women. One is the girl's mother, and we are protecting the victims' identities. The victims were 3 and 6 at the time. They were beaten with belts, starved, and kept in the basement. One child was taped shut inside a cardboard box. The girls were rescued after a babysitter contacted police when she noticed their injuries. Today, the judge said, quote, "They only stopped because they were caught." The women have been in custody since the end of 2017. They pleaded guilty. The Crown was asking for 7 to 8 years. The defense lawyer for the mother is disappointed by the sentence, saying mitigating factors weren't taken into account. He also says being in custody has been extremely difficult for his client, who has also expressed deep remorse.
I think her personal circumstances and her limited cognitive ability really impacted her inability to understand the situation and the circumstances and what the children were going through at the time. Being removed from the situation and being aware of the totality of the injuries the children suffered, I think has been very awakening for her. And she's had the opportunity to reflect upon it a great deal, particularly since she's been in segregation and isolation for as long as she has been in the Remand Center.
Now, the lawyer says they may appeal. With credit for time served, the victim's mother has another 4 years and 3 months left to serve.
And Nancy, have we heard from the other defense lawyer?
Yeah, we have. She issued a statement to us saying her client is looking forward to putting the matter behind her, working on improving herself and reestablishing relationships with her immediate family. She has another 3 years and 5 months left on her sentence.
Nancy Carlson in Edmonton. Thank you, Nancy. A bleak but not overly brutal forecast for Alberta's economy today. ATB Financial's chief economist hosting a webinar to assess the impact of COVID-19. Todd Hirsch acknowledging these are unprecedented times for the energy sector. And with global demand and prices way down, he says the pandemic will reshape the province's oil and gas industry, but not displace it as the backbone of Alberta's economy. Hirsch also seeing opportunities for growth in areas like health technology, communications tech, and the agri-food business. As for the short term, he urges Albertans to be patient, saying it's going to be a rough road ahead.
I am quite confident that this will be the single deepest year of recession the province has ever seen. Even going back to the Depression of the 1930s. Now, I don't want to be too alarmist in that. I don't think we will look as a province like we did in 1935, but the level of contraction will be on par or greater than some of those years in the 30s.
Well, glimmer of good news for the energy sector today. Western Canadian Selects, the Canadian benchmark, was up $3.50 today, closing at just under $9 US a barrel. West Texas Intermediate was also up $5 to just over $25 a barrel. Well, despite today's uptick in the price of crude, the industry continues to bleed, and oil companies continue to wait for that promised federal aid package. CBC business reporter Kyle Bax has a look at what the industry is hoping for.
More than a week ago, Finance Minister Bill Morneau said financial help for the country's beleaguered oil patch was coming within hours, possibly days. This morning, there is still no aid package from Ottawa. The oil patch is struggling as COVID-19 has reduced demand for fuel. At the same time, Russia and Saudi Arabia have flooded the market with oil. Oil patch leaders say companies are having difficulty accessing money from lenders.
Liquidity is number 1, 2, and 3 on the list because this is a liquidity crisis for our industry. When we see such a big reduction in pricing and a big reduction in demand all at once, this is, in my career, unprecedented.
Any talk of financial help for the oil patch will frustrate critics who would much rather see government money used to promote renewable energy sources instead of aiding the fossil fuel sector. The oil patch is not looking for a bailout, say executives, but instead Ottawa could provide low-interest loans or find other ways to cut costs for the sector. There is still no word when that federal aid package will come. Kyle Bax, CBC News, Calgary.
Another hard-hit part of the economy is the service sector, restaurants in particular. In fact, a new survey by Restaurants Canada estimates that 25,000 food service jobs have been lost in Saskatchewan alone due to the outbreak. Dale McKay is the former winner of Top Chef Canada. He's co-owner of Grassroots Restaurant Group, which oversees 4 popular Saskatoon and Regina restaurants. But he's had to temporarily shut down all services and lay off all employees. McKay says he's glad the federal government has promised a new 75% wage subsidy for small to medium-sized businesses that are still open. But he says more will be needed to help the service industry recover when restaurants get back up and running.
We're going to have to look at getting more of a stimulus pack specifically for labor like this. Again, I think this is going to need to be extended after the reopening, given the fact that that's when we're really going to need it, when we're going to be, firing up our workforce again and rehiring, the people we laid off or new employees. But that's when we're really going to need it from the hospitality industry, from an owner standpoint, not right now.
A number of small Saskatchewan businesses have already permanently shut down due to financial strain. Others are still open and offering delivery and takeout only. And with dining in restaurants now off limits, most people, of course, they're doing a lot more cooking at home. And that means groceries are needed. Those staples are being delivered by truckers to every corner of the country. But the truckers also need to eat. So some folks here in Calgary are making some special deliveries of their own.
We're here to help. And these are the truckers. They're doing the hard work for us. They're bringing all the food, all the medical supplies. Most of the restaurants, the dine-ins are closed and drive-through are open, but trucks are too big to drive through. They can't fit in, so that's why our community decided to deliver food to our truckers. We give approximately around 100 meals a day. We give truckers the food for at least for a few days, for a couple of days, because they can store that in their coolers or fridges and stuff, right? They can call us before they come, and we arrange the delivery. They can come to the truck stop. We can deliver them food on the highway or the rest area. We also have a helpline set up. Anyone can come over and they can pick up a meal, or if someone in isolation, and we can deliver the food. When we initially started, we had maybe 15 walk-ins, and now we got over 100, and we prepare almost 500 meals a day. It's for everyone. It's not just for Sikh people. It's for all Canadians. Like, as a community, we got to get together to come out of this pandemic.